In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Balat. Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last.
Nah, go ahead. We're going to read the entire breakdown out of Josephus right next.
And I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast would stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hands, but he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a noticeable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran into him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand.
Go ahead.
Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, for it came up 4 notable ones towards the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. Keep going, sorry.
One more verse.
And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them.
Matter of fact, stop right there, because that's talking about Antiochus. We haven't got there in the Apocrypha. Read what you got. Now this is the breakdown of Daniel, the 8th chapter. All right, that we read it to you. Now read this. This is out of Flavius Josephus. All right, just go ahead. This is Flavius Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews. All right, the 2nd book that he wrote, book 10, chapter 11, paragraph 7.
All right.
Go ahead,
But it is fit to give an account of what this man did.
This talking about Daniel,
which is most admirable to hear. For he is so happy as to have strange revelations made unto him, and those as to one of the greatest of the prophets. Insomuch that while he was alive, he had the esteem and applause of both of the kings and of the multitude. And now he is dead.
Right, a black man. Go ahead, read.
He retains a remembrance that will never fail. For the several books that he wrote and left behind him are still read by us till this time. And from them we believe that Daniel conversed with God. For he did not only prophesy of future events, as did the other prophets, but he also determined the time of their accomplishment. And while the prophets used to foretell misfortunes, and on that account we were disagreeable both to the kings and to the multitude, Daniel was to them a prophet of good things, and this to such a degree that, by the agreeable nature of his predictions, he procured the good will of all men. And by the accomplishment of them, he procured the belief of their truth, and the opinion of a sort of divinity for himself among the multitude. He also wrote and left behind him what made manifest the accuracy and undeniable veracity of his predictions. For he saith that when he was in Susa, the metropolis of Persia,
right. This is going into Daniel the 8th chapter. This is the breakdown. Go ahead.
And went out into the field with his companions, there was on the sudden a motion and concussion of the earth, and that he was left alone by himself, his friends flying away from him, and that he was disturbed and fell on his face, and on his 2 hands, and that a certain person touched him, and at the same time bade him rise, and see what would befall his countrymen after many generations. He also related that when he stood up, he was shown a great ram, with many horns growing out of his head, and that the last was higher than the rest. And after this he looked to the west, and saw a he-goat carried through the air from that quarter. That he rushed upon the ram with violence, and smote him twice with his horns, and overthrew him to the ground, and trampled upon him. Afterwards he saw a very great horn growing out of the head of the he-goat, and that when it was broken off, 4 horns grew up that were exposed to each of the 4 winds. And he wrote that out of them arose another lesser horn, which, as he said, waxed great, and that God showed to him that it should fight against his nation, and take their city by force, and bring the temple worship to confusion, and forbid the sacrifices to be offered for 1,296 days. Daniel wrote that he saw these visions in the plain of Susa, and he hath informed us that God interpreted the appearance of this vision after the following manner.
Now this how he's gonna start breaking it down now. Go ahead.
He said that the ram signified the kingdoms of the Medes and the Persians.
See that the ram with the 2 horns represented the kingdom of the Median and the Persians. All right, the Persians was the higher horn. The Median or Media was the lesser horn. All right, because the Persians were more in control of the kingdom or whatever you want to call it. But they had a partnership.
Yeah, and they were ruling before the Persians.
Right.
That's why I said one horn, the second horn came up after the first horn, but it was more powerful.
Right, and you Persians, that's the modern day Iranians, all right, and East Indians.
The East Indians.
Most of the people in India, all right, and then you meet the people of Media. They were Japhetic people, all right, Hawaiian people, Minoan people, Samoan people, some Filipino people, all right. Go on.
And the horns, those kings that were to reign, and the horns, those kings that were to reign in them. Okay. And that the last horn signified the last king, and that he should exceed all the kings in riches and glory. That the he-goat signified that one should come and reign from the Greeks, who should twice fight with the Persians and overcome him in battle.
Right, that's why I said the ram smote him 2 times. Because the first time he didn't succeed, but the second time he overcame him.
And should receive his entire dominion. That by the great horn.
I know, yes, and it said the last king was going to exceed all of them in riches. Darius was the richest king of that empire, whatever you want to call it. Because when Alexander went to go fight against them, everybody thought he was crazy. And now Alexander had the strongest army at the time. But just to show you how big and powerful Darius was, it took the man with the strongest and best army, Alexander, 2 tries in defeating him. Read on.
Right. That by the great horn which sprang out of the forehead of the he-goat was meant the first king. And that the springing up of 4 horns upon his falling off, and the conversion of every one of them to the 4 quarters of the earth, signified the successors that should arise after the death of the first king.
Right, after the first king, Alexander, because you had them 4 generals, right? But actually the other two more guys worth mentioning was you had Alexander's son that actually reigned in Macedonia, but didn't nobody respect him. All right, so he didn't hold that rulership too long. And then you actually had a 5th general who ruled the area of the Levant. All right, but the Levant is not a major piece of land. It's just that sea coast right there over there. All right, so he didn't really rule any significant piece of land either. All right, so the prophecy, all right, was only aimed at major pieces of that split. All right, because they was the only 4 that was gonna make a difference in the prophecy.
Yeah.
Go on.
Right. Signify the successors that should arise after the death of the first king, and the partition of the kingdom among them, and that they should be neither his children nor of his kindred, and should reign over the habitable earth for many years.
Right, because see, his son, didn't nobody respect his son as no ruler. All right, his son got taken down off the throne right when he got put up there.
Yeah.
I think it was Alexander's mom was trying to put his son up on the throne or something.
Yeah, it was his mom.
If you watch the movie, you know what I mean, it explains it. Go on.
And that from among them there should arise a certain king that should overcome our nation and their laws, and should take away our political government, and should spoil the temple.
Right, and we're going to read that in Maccabees 1. Go ahead.
And forbid the sacrifices to be offered for 3 years' time. And indeed it so came to pass that our nation suffered these things under Antiochus Epiphanes, according to Daniel's vision.
See, according to that, this Josephus is a history book, man. All right, you go and read a social studies book and an encyclopedia, but for some reason, when we bring out some history to you dealing with the Bible, it's got to be some kind of dispute.
Just like, matter of fact, I'm gonna jump back to rereading Daniel 8, because when you jump down to the 16th verse,
right,
they sum up basically the same thing that Josephus saying. Yeah, they said Daniel 8 and 16, and I heard a man voice between the banks of Balaam, which called and said,